Hello and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and we continue to preview the fantasy positions for the coming season. We did quarterback position already. Now we're up to the running backs, and I'm going to be joined by my son Henry Paur to go over all these positions. And as always, don't forget to sign up for a league on our site, RTSports.com. Click on that Money League link. We have our Fantasy Life Championship for $500,000, our Best Ball Championships. You can get in our All American Leagues. We have all sorts of different contests as well for different price points. So you name it, we're offering it here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. And also don't forget about our great commissioner product as well. Just a great tool to use if you want to run your leagues on our site as well. Don't forget about that. With that said, let's preview the running backs, and I'm going to be joined by my son Henry Paur, and I'm going to bring him up right now. Henry, as always, I appreciate you joining me on the show.
No problem. It's always fun.
It is always fun, and we are going to talk about running backs today, Henry. It's a fun position to draft. There's a lot of choices, a lot of options, a lot of value throughout the draft as well. And we started off the quarterback position with this question, and I'm going to start off the running back one with this as well. But what's kind of the biggest fantasy storyline for running backs heading into drafts in the coming weeks?
Mine is, I think there's a lot of value that you can find right now after rounds 1 to 2 area. Like, you find like a lot of workhorse backs that don't have much competition that are probably going to get big roles in their offense. You have guys like Quinshon Judkins, who we saw what he did at towards the end of that year before he got hurt. He was a complete workhorse in that offense, and I can see that changed with Monken calling plays now. We saw what he did with Henry, very run heavy focus. Then you have guys like David Montgomery who goes to Houston. I know there's talk that they say they're going to split work with Woody Marks, but I think that's more just saying that there's still coach talk there. But he's probably just going to get a third down work, and Monty's going to be the big workhorse on the ground. Then you have Cam Scadaboo, even another complete workhorse. Byshaw too. And I'll talk more about him later. But I think he's also a great workhorse, going to get a ton of work. And even Jadarian Price is a rookie. I mean, these guys are all going to get a ton of work and have like zero competition and take away carries at the moment.
So Henry's storyline is there's some good value to be had after those first couple rounds. Still some backs that face little competition. I agree with that. My storyline is, and I've never been a proponent of this anyway, but I feel like the zero running back strategy is going to be used less and less this year. And it's because of last year, quite frankly. Last year, receivers, the bust rate on rounds 1 through 5 on receivers was 41%. So that's almost half the receivers busted in the 1 through 5 rounds of drafts. Last year, compare that with running backs, it was 28%. Still kind of a high number, but not nearly that as receiver. And I think everybody used the zero running back strategy because they thought that receivers was a safer pick. But last year kind of showed that they weren't. So I think the zero running back strategy that was so popular the last couple of years is going to be used less and less this year. Maybe it'll change next year. Who knows? But for this year, and with the drafts I've seen already, it's not going to be used as much. So that's my big storyline for running backs. Now let's move on to the specific players, Henry. We're going to give you a bunch of different categories throughout this video, and we're going to talk about our picks for each of them. I'm going to start with safest pick. So who do you think is the safest running back to draft? Not necessarily the best, but who is, a safe pick for fantasy teams?
I think it's James Cook. I mean, the last 2 years he's been dominant, and I feel like keep undervaluing. I know this year he's finally a first round pick, but 2 years before that, he's like a third, fourth round pick. I mean, he's in one of the best, if not one of the best offenses in football. There's going to be production. They always keep saying Ray Dave's going to get involved, but it never happens. So I just, there's not much competition. He always scores. He's a workhorse. He gets work in the receiving game. I just think he's a very safe option. And I know they had a DJ Moore. That may open up more in the run game even if they're able to throw the ball a little better. So I think James Cook's a very safe pick towards the end of round 1.
So my pick is actually someone who's picked really right around James Cook, and I feel like he's a very similar player. It's Chase Brown. And Chase Brown's numbers last year kind of underrated, but he averaged 2.3 yards before contact last year and then 2.1 yards after contact last year. He broke 16 tackles as well. So he got it done before the line of scrimmage and after the line of scrimmage. And that offensive line was not great last year for Cincinnati. And I think it's going to be better this year. They made some upgrades there. He has next to no competition for carries, plays in a great offense. They also want to run the ball more, is what they're trying to say as well in Cincinnati. So I think Chase Brown is super safe. I love his floor. I think he's going to be another good fantasy back. Another good fantasy season for Chase Brown. All right, kind of along the same lines, but a little different. Let's talk about league winner. Who do you think is going to be a league winning fantasy back this year?
So I mentioned his name earlier, and I'm going to talk about it some more. That's Bishal Tootin. I mean, the reports out of camp is he just looks unreal, and we know the speed that he has, the upside he provides in the passing game. We saw how good the Jaguars' offense was. I feel like that part of it's going a little undervalued right now. With Lawrence going later too, is people are really starting to doubt. I feel like the Jaguars' offense is a little bit. They have three great receivers, a great rushing attack. Liam Cohen is at a call plays, Lawrence at the helm. I mean, it's a great offense, and Etienne had a great year last year when he was in that offense, and now you get Tootin with, I know they have Chris Rodriguez trying to steal a little bit of work, but we saw what he was in Washington. He had a couple good games. He was also cut like 3 times and added to the practice squad. So I wouldn't expect him to cut much and it'll work. I think Tootin has a huge upside. His speed and work in the receiving game, I think he could be great.
Tootin was on my short list for this category as well. I'm going to say Jonathan Brooks. A little more risky, and I liked him better a few weeks ago when his ADP was higher, but right now it's around 90, so it's still pretty cheap. I don't trust Chuba Hubbard. I just don't think that he's a true number one back. And remember, last year, Rico Dowdle, he was really good and in a starting role for Carolina, and he had that job much of the year from Hubbard, and he had some huge games in that role. So I think Brooks can play a similar role to Dowdle and then end up, becoming that true number one back in Carolina. I think he's a more dynamic back than Hubbard as well. So I like his 3 down potential. I think he's going to have a breakout season. Again, health is a big concern with Brooks, but if he's healthy and he's on the field in this offense that's emerging, I think he's going to have a huge year for fantasy teams. All right, opposite end of things, Henry. Let's talk about the biggest bust at running back this year for fantasy teams.
I have Brees Hall, and it's not that I don't like the player; it's that I don't like the offense at all. I know Geno Smith is an upgrade, but you have Frank Reich calling plays. We saw that wasn't the best thing in the world when he last did it in Carolina. But I just don't trust the offense. I just don't see where they're any good whatsoever. We saw what it was last year when he had no QBL. He was solid, but he had a couple of those games where he put up like 5 to 6 points and not provide much in the receiving game. We think there could be more Braylon Allen involved this year, maybe a little bit. They keep talking him up a little bit, that he's in great shape, and we hear that a lot. But I think he could get more involved, and I just think Brees Hall is a big fade, in my opinion, this year.
My bust is DeAndre Swift. For whatever reason, it just seems like he kind of wears out his welcome wherever he plays. He did it in Philadelphia and Detroit as well. Really started out great with both those teams, but then just kind of faded by the wayside. I think it's going to happen in Chicago as well. Kyle Monangai is emerging as a good fantasy back in this offense. I think he's going to end up becoming the number one back before the season is over with. They could split work early in the year, but I think Swift's going to go by the wayside a little bit. Monangai is going to emerge, and I'm just not sure I want to use that high of a draft pick on Swift at this point of the thing. At this point of fantasy drafts, I should say. I'm just worried about him. So I think he's going to end up being a bust for fantasy teams. I'd rather have Kyle Monangai of the two at the cheaper price tag. All right, Henry, higher than consensus. So this is a running back that you're probably a little bit higher on than most of the so-called fantasy experts or the ADP right now. Who's your higher than consensus fantasy back?
Mine's Tony Pollard. I'm a firm believer the Titans are going to be a much better offense this year. We saw the flashes of Cam Ward's potential last year. They added Wan'Dale Robinson and Carnell Tate to one of the worst receiver rooms in football. They have Brian Daboll calling plays now, which he may not have been the best head coach, but he could call an offense. We saw that
Yep.
in Buffalo. We also saw it in New York. So I think this offense is just going to be light years better than what it was. And if that happens, I mean, you could see touchdowns go up, yards go up. I know we have Spears, but I think he's more just a guy you're going to be used in the receiving game. I just think Pollard has a lot of upside. We saw he had some good games last year, and just they're going to have a fourth place schedule this year too. I think there's a lot of upside in Tony Pollard later in drafts.
I like Devon Achane a little higher than consensus. He goes pretty high already, but I really like him. I have him as my RB5 compared to RB10, which is what he is for ADP right now. I just think he's undervalued. I know he plays on a poor team, but he led the league in yards per carry last year at 5.7. He also led the league in yards after contact with 3.0 yards per carry after contact. He showed he's more than just a finesse back. He can get it done after contact. He catches the ball tremendously well. Also, he has all 3 seasons in the NFL. He has double-digit touchdowns all 3 seasons in the NFL. And he has nearly 1,500 total yards 2 straight years as well. I think he's going to have another huge year. I know that offense isn't very good, but they're going to try to be run heavy. They're going to center it around Achane. I think he's going to get a ton of touches, and he makes plays happen with the ball in his hands. All right, opposite end of things again. So we go from good to bad, and so that's lower than consensus, Henry. Who's your lower than consensus fantasy back?
I have Kyron Williams. I know people like him a decent amount because he's a workhorse, really good offense, but they keep talking up Blake Corum. I know that's a thing that happens a lot, and sometimes it's not a lot of they don't really believe it, but Blake Corum got really involved down the stretch of last year. I think there's maybe real hype around him, and they're going to use him more. I know Kyron got an extension a couple years ago. He's still on a decent amount of money, but Blake Corum, I think, is going to get more and more involved. And not to say that Kyron won't be good this year, just I don't know if he's worth the price tag where you're paying for him right now with how much Corum I think will be involved. But I mean, it's worth the risk, but I don't know. I'm a little lower on Kyron this year.
So my lower than consensus back is a guy I probably should never bet against, and I seem to do it way too much. It's Derrick Henry. I think a regression has to come at some point. He has 300 plus carries each of his last 2 seasons. He has a ton of carries throughout his career. Somehow he stayed healthy through it all. He has an insane offseason workout routine. I know that. But he's starting to show some signs of slowing down a little bit late in the year last year, and I don't trust him to keep it going. I think they're going to try to lighten his workload a little more as well. It's a new offense too. Not sure how he's going to fit in there. So I'm worried about Derrick Henry a little bit, and I'm just letting somebody else draft him. I'm not sure the ceiling is there for me to use a second round pick on him at this point. So maybe I'm not smart for betting against Big Derrick Henry, but I am for this year, and I'm letting somebody else take him on their fantasy team. Kind of along the same lines, Henry, but not a specific player. It seems like there are a lot of shared backfields this year, or backfields that are a little uncertain. So my next question to you is, what backfield are you avoiding come draft day?
I'm avoiding Denver. I know it's a really good offense. We know they're going to score a lot of points, but I don't know which of the three is going to actually break out of the pack in this one. You had Jonah Coleman, they drafted after re signing J.K. Dobbins and drafting R.J. Harvey in round 2 the year before. They have 3 backs, and no one knows who's starting or what's happening. I know they're going to score. That's the big thing. They're going to score, but I don't know who's going to get that work. Is it going to be Dobbins, who had a pretty good year last year before injury? Is it going to be Harvey in the receiving game? Or is Coleman going to steal work from both of them? They think Coleman's the future of running back. We don't know. I'm just fading it at all costs. I don't think it's worth the price tag. We have to pay for them. I know it's a little later anyway, but especially RJ Harvey, I don't think I'd pay the price tag for him because we just don't know what's going to happen in that offense. Maybe J.K. Dobbins out, man out, and they go with both the young guys, but I just don't know what's happening, and I try to avoid it at this point.
So my backfield's kind of the same way. It's an offense that could be really good, but I'm just scared of it, and it's New England. So the Patriots have Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson there splitting the work. I think it's going to continue to be a true timeshare. I think people undervalue Ramondre Stevenson. He logged a lot of the carries late in the year during their playoff run, and I think that shows that they trust him more than Henderson at this point. Henderson's a great big play threat in the offense. He made some huge plays last year on limited work. But if he's not getting a ton of touches, it's hard for him to have a huge weekly ceiling in that offense if he's not getting the work. And I think it's going to be a true timeshare. And Henderson, huge price tag for him. It's normally around a second round pick come draft day. Stevenson's cheaper, but he still goes pretty high as well, fifth, sixth round pick. So I'm just avoiding this situation. I think it's going to be a scary one for fantasy owners. And sure, these guys could go off any single week, but I'm just not sure how often that's going to happen on a weekly basis where they're really consistent for fantasy teams. So I'm just kind of letting somebody else take these Patriots backs this year. All right, Henry, I'm going to give you a couple players who have similar ADPs. We're going to go through four of these scenarios. These guys all have similar ADPs, and you tell me who you're going to take out of the two picks, the two choices that I give you. Start with the high end backs in the draft, and it's McCaffrey or Genty. Who you picking if it comes up and you're up and you got the choice between Christian McCaffrey and Ashton Genty?
So I know we all love McCaffrey, how good he is, but I'm going to go with Ashton Genty in this one. I just think that this is the huge second-year breakout that we were expecting last year in his rookie year. If Clint Kubiak calling plays, you have a big upgraded QB, the O-line got upgraded. I mean, all signs point to Genty having a monster year, in my opinion. We saw how good Kubiak is at calling plays, especially in the run game. We saw Kenneth Walker had a huge game in the Super Bowl. In the playoffs, I know he's mid throughout the year a little bit, but he's not just competition. I know they drafted Mike Washington, but they spent a high capital pick on Genty. He's going to get a big workload, and I expect him to get a lot of work in the passing game too, because if both quarterbacks, either Mendoza or Kirk Cousins, both love to dump the ball off a little bit, I'm going to assume that continues, even if Mendoza going in the NFL now, that Genty's going to see a lot of work in the receiving game along with a big workload in the rushing game. I just think there's a huge upside in Genty this year.
I'm with you. I'm taking Genty over McCaffrey. McCaffrey is one of those rare backs that can lead fantasy backs in scoring any given season because he has such huge potential in the passing game. But he had a huge workload last year. I think it was nearly 400 touches. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was like 383 or 363. I can't remember off the top of my head. But McCaffrey had a huge workload, and his yards per carry were actually down a little bit. So despite the huge season, he showed some signs of regression, and he's always an injury risk. He's not getting any younger. I'm going with the younger back in Genty and the guy with more upside. So give me Genty over McCaffrey for many of the reasons you mentioned as well, Henry. All right, next one, Henry. Another couple high-end backs. Omarion Hampton. A lot of people think he's going to have a second-year breakout in that new Chargers offense. Or Saquon Barkley, the veteran who's led fantasy backs in scoring before. So who are you taking out of those two?
Well, I know who you're picking on this one because you've talked him up a lot, but I'm going to go Saquon Barkley here. I love Hampton. I think he is primed for a big year, but Saquon last year had some down weeks. We also had some big weeks still. He still has all that juice in the tank. We saw what he did 2 years ago. I think a big issue last year was the play calling was horrific. They also dealt with a decent amount of injuries on the offensive line. And this year, they look to be fully healthy. They lost A.J. Brown, maybe hinting towards they may run the ball a little more. I know they drafted Lemon, but I think they may run the ball a little more. You have Sean Mannion calling plays now. This comes from the McVay-Shanahan tree, which I think that's very intriguing for any offense when you get one of those from their tree. That a lot of those guys have panned out recently, especially in just a calling plays department. I think Barkley could have a huge year. I just think he's going to get some more dump-offs this year because they're not going to have that big deep threat A.J. Brown was, so they may have to check it down a little more. And I just think he could have a big year in the running game if they can actually have a healthy offensive line this year. We saw what he was when they were healthy 2 years ago. He was the number one player in fantasy or whatever. So, I mean, I'm all in on Barkley having a big year this year.
I do think Barkley's going to have a rebound season, and he's a little bit undervalued, but I'm going with Hampton. I just like him in the Mike McDaniels offense. The Chargers have a really good offense as well. They have a offensive line that can be very good as long as they're healthy. That was an issue last year, and I think Hampton's got a lot of juice. He can be a solid three-down back. I don't like the competition for carries with him as well. I know they have some backs that they've used in the past, but I think Hampton's kind of head and shoulders above the rest, like Kamani Vidal. So I trust Hampton. I think he's going to have a huge year. Good offensive line in Los Angeles, and they have a really good offense too. So I think his ceiling is super high. I'm going with him over Saquon. Next one, Henry, kind of a couple of the backs that you mentioned earlier in the show when you're talking about backs you can get after the first couple rounds. So I'm going to give you two and a similar ADP there. David Montgomery or Travis Etienne, or however he's saying it now, but I'm still saying Etienne, but it's supposed to be Etienne, or I don't know. Regardless, Etienne or Montgomery.
Yeah, it sounds just like Etienne a little bit. I think it's more that department, but
okay,
like Travis Etienne or something. But I'm still going to go with Etienne also, and that's who I'm going with on this one. I just think he's primed for a big year. We saw he was last year. He goes to the Saints offense. We know Kellen Moore loves to run the ball. We saw what he did with Barkley. They won the Super Bowl in the year where Barkley had that huge year. So I just think they're going to run the ball a lot. Tyler Shuck's going to be an upgrade, and an upgrade from Lawrence. But in general, the Saints' offense is going to be very good this year. They added weapons all around. The O line got upgraded. I just think it's a big year for a chain or Etienne, however you want to say it. So I think he's in store for a big year this year.
I think this is a really close call. Two backs in new situations. I mean, I could go either way come draft day, and I probably have already in some of the drafts I've done, but I'll lean Montgomery. I think, like you mentioned earlier, I know Woody Marks is getting talked about a little bit to get a little more work in that offense, but I still think Montgomery's going to be the workhorse. They want to run the ball as well. They've made some improvements along the offensive line also. I like that offense in Houston, made some strides last year. I think the passing game will be better with the receivers healthy there in Houston, and I think that's a benefit for the running game. So I give Montgomery a slight edge here, but again, I could go either way with these backs. All right, last one, Henry. Chuba Hubbard or Jordan Mason. So these are two backs that aren't necessarily sure things, but who you taking out of these two?
I'm gonna go Jordan Mason, and that's because I think the Vikings offense is gonna be a lot better this year. There was some stat earlier in the year that was floating around in the fantasy world of like Jordan Mason was tackled, I think it was like 5 or 6 times at the 1 yard line last year, but didn't score that same drive. That's a lot of fantasy points right there missed out on. I think this year they're just going to score more, and I think it'll be the big thing, and they're going to hold more leads. I think the issue last year was they'd get behind. Aaron Jones would come in because he's a better pass catcher, but I think this year they could hold some more leads. They're good. I mean, if they hold more leads, they're going to run the ball. So I think Mason's going to get a heavy workload. We saw that he was more of the prime workhorse in the rushing attack than Aaron Jones was. And I know that Aaron Jones did resign for a small contract. I think he's just going to be the third down back more. I just think Mason's the more complete back in the rushing attack and more of a power back that I think Kevin O'Connell wants to use in that attack so they can use him more in play action, be able to run the ball at the gut more. I just think Mason's going to have a big year.
If you look what I said earlier in the show, I said Jonathan Brooks was going to be a league winner. So that probably means I'm not going to pick Hubbard here, and you're right. So I'm not going to pick Chuba Hubbard. I'm going with Jordan Mason as well. I trust him more in that Vikings offense. I think he's going to be the workhorse over Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is not getting any younger. I think he's 32 now, if I'm not mistaken, and he showed signs of slowing down last season. Mason, it's always been injuries with him. He's had a tough time staying healthy, but if he can stay on the field, as you mentioned, I think this offense is going to be better. He has some real potential to do good things. So I'm taking a lot of chances on Mason this year. I think he could be really good for fantasy teams. Last question for you, Henry. Bold prediction at the fantasy running back spot. Easy for me to say. So, what's your bold prediction for a fantasy running back this year?
I talked about him earlier. I said how much I liked him this year. I think he was in my league winner. So I'm going to say Baishal Tootin finishes in the top 8 for scoring at the running back position this year. I know it's a pretty high odds, but we saw flashes last year of the big play potential. We saw how much Cohen used him. We were a little shocked at the time by how much we ate into some of the workload in the receiving game, but we saw what he could do in the receiving game. We saw some plays in the rushing attack, and now he's just a workhorse in the rushing attack, and he's probably going to get those third down snaps. He's going to be a three down back in a really good offense. Big play potential, second year breakout, most likely. I just think Tootin's primed for a huge breakout year this year.
I have another young back I think is going to have a breakout year. It's Quinshawn Judkins. I think he's going to be a top 5 fantasy back. You heard that right. I said top 5 fantasy back for Quinshawn Judkins. Last year, if you can believe this, he averaged just 1.4 yards per carry before contact. So his offensive line was horrible last year. So if they give him just a little more room to run, I think that's going to be a huge positive because after contact, he averaged 2.2 yards per carry after contact, which is really good. So if that offensive line play gets even a little better, and I think the quarterback's going to be better this year, whoever's starting, I think they have to play better than what happened last year in that offense. And I think that's going to be a positive for Judkins, too. And last year, he missed 3 games, still had 2 yards shy of 1,000 total yards and 7 touchdowns. And it was a train wreck there in Cleveland. I think things are going to be better there offensively. And I think Judkins is going to have a breakout year. So I'm going to say Judkins is a top 5 fantasy back. All right, Henry. Great stuff. Appreciate you joining me. We got a couple more positions to get through, but that's the running back one. It's wrapped up and ready for you to digest out there and put to use on a league here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Thanks again so much for joining me, Henry. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's always fun.
And thanks to everybody out there for watching. Really appreciate that as well. And I appreciate you being a loyal viewer and follower of Real Time Fantasy Sports. This has been Jeff Paur for Real Time Fantasy Sports. Have a great day, everyone.